Saturday, April 5th, 2025. Happy Saturday. Say what's up in the chat, guys. Say what's up as you come in. Yeah. It's funny because out of all of the days of the week, in my analytics, Saturday is actually one of my latest days. Probably other than Thursday. I still post around the same time on those days, but it's actually, yeah, one of my latest days other than Thursday. If I actually feel like getting on late. I could actually get on later than this. And it says that it would still be pretty good, but YouTube has to figure itself out because I know on Saturday night most people are doing something. Most people are doing something. Alright guys, so with that being said, April 5th, 2025 on a Saturday. Welcome to Cozy Corner live stream, guys, where our daily live stream happens every single day over here except for Sunday. Today's Saturday and I'm going to, as per usual, go down the menu. So let's take a look at what we're going to be digesting today. I hope that you're grounded and regulated because if you are not, you should not digest this stuff because news can be triggering. So with that being said, shout out to Yahoo Finance. Kevin O'Leary on tariffs. China doesn't play by the rules. I live streamed this last night. I didn't react to it too much. It was something I wanted you guys more to watch. It was like a news night. So I just kind of had it going. But I'm going to like react to this with you guys today. And I said that last night. So we'll see what Kevin O'Leary has to say about China not playing fair. Switch gears and jump over to shout out to Yemek Zamanin. 159,000 subscribers. He covered Sean Hannity. And Sean Hannity is talking about AOC in this, well, he's going over Kamala Harris. She made not a debut because she has been out since post-election, but she was speaking somewhere and, you know, they were pretty much making fun of her word salad. Now, at post-election, we know Kamala Harris for word salads and putting just a lot of random stuff together that usually by the time she's done, we don't know what she's talking about. So he covered some of that. What else did he get to? He covered some of, oh, this was a good thing. He covered some of the things Obama said when he was running for first term. And he had a lot of clips of when the Democrats showed how much they were in support of tariffs, which this I thought was very interesting. But Sean Hannity seems to allude to the fact that historically, like certain Democrats, I don't think he said hard leftists, like the extremist type, but certain Democrats are usually for, you know, tariffs. Historically, that's what it's been like in the past. And said 248G, hi, what's up? Thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor, hit that like button. F Zombie, brother, what's up? How you doing? Hit that like button. Happy Saturday, guys. So he kind of alluded to the fact that Democrats usually are in favor of tariffs. So it was interesting to see those clips where you have Chuck Schumer, Obama, you have there were so many people from the Democratic Party talking about how like tariffs need to be in place and how they're important. So I thought it was so interesting to see how we've been watching the Democratic Party react to Trump's tariffs. And it's like, hold on, you guys. Historically speaking, in the past, you guys have been for tariffs. So what's the problem now? So we're going to take a look at that. Then shout out to Anthony Bryan Logan. I've been watching Anthony Bryan for some time. He has 1.8 million subscribers, 1.08 million, so almost at 1.1. He covered Byron Donald's response to Jasmine Crockett's racist remarks. So in case you guys are unaware, Byron Donalds is a representative of Florida. He is running, I believe, for governor of Florida, along with Mayor DeSantis' wife. She's also running for governor. And Jasmine Crockett, she is a congresswoman. She represents the state of Texas, I believe it is. And she made a response. Now, Jasmine was just kind of in hot water for talking about Governor Greg Abbott from Texas. She called him Hot Wheels. And in case you guys don't know, this is a governor who's in a wheelchair. So she experienced a lot of backlash for that. Now she said something about Byron Donald's wife and alludes to the fact that because his wife is white or not black, that he is, I guess, whitewashed. And that's the reason why he believes in the politics he believes in. Listen, I can't stand people who have a stance like that. I can't say I've never ran into that. Again, me and my wife are not the same race, so sometimes like we do run into I've ran into people like trying to allude to things like that, but I'm like, nah, like try that with somebody else. As somebody who was already in the Marine Corps and served the country, I'm not trying to hear that. My politics are the way that they are because I've served America, I've served in America's military, and I've observed the government. So my politics are the way they are for a reason. I vote for who I want to vote for, but nonetheless, I just think it's so petty when people go into things like that and they think because you're not with the same race, that you are, that for some reason that affects your politics. Am I saying that's totally impossible? No, not at all. I'm sure it has some type of bearing on it. But any person that has discipline, that has a mind of their own, and they can observe politics through their own point of view, I think that they should still be able to come up with their own ideas. So the fact that she even, brought his wife into it, just and also related to politics, I just thought it was distasteful. So I'm like, okay, Jasmine Crockett, like one of the loudest voices for the Democratic Party, but just keeps doing things that just kind of represent bad behavior in public, and I'm worried about it. Like Pam Bondi has came for her and said something about she needs to be very careful, alluding to that she could experience some type of discipline, possibly a censorship, which would be a formal spanking on the hand for senators and representatives. So we'll see. On the Elevate podcast, shout out to them. We'll switch gears a little bit. This is where I get some of my Canadian news from. It says Poilievre's answer to insane question leaves reporters speechless. So this reporter asked Pierre Poilievre that if he became Prime Minister of Canada, would he make sure to basically not just make Canada's military stronger, but I guess you can say to arm troops that would be ready to go to war with America. I hated this question, as did the host of the podcast, because it's divisive. America is not going to war with Canada, and Canada's not going to war with America. There's nothing like that happening, and I hate when the extreme leftist media does this and they promote this type of rhetoric, and it just makes people confused and nervous and just think about things that aren't really happening. So I love the way Pierre answered the question. We'll probably only go 4 minutes into this clip just to see his answer, and then kind of a little bit more of what the host says after Pierre answers. But I agree with him that the media is this stuff that they're trying to push down our throats, and this is why mainstream media has pretty much lost its touch over the last 5 years. That fly's gonna drive me crazy. I have to kill it. And then we'll switch gears a little bit, go over to CTV News. Conservative leader Poilievre vows to cut bureaucratic red tape by 25%. Now, I actually like this plan that Pierre came out with. I got a chance to watch this live. So I did get a chance to watch the whole entire thing, but I was trying to go back because I was going to touch on some more things with you guys. This is going to be a much shorter clip than the original speech that he made. But he has a good plan in place to where, it can help the working class people. I see where he's going with it. Once he talks about it, I'll explain to you guys more about why I like that he puts it in place. And then we're going to jump over to Cliff Buell. In case you guys don't know, Cliff is a YouTube content creator who focuses on Christian content. So every night we try to react to a clip by a clip. We usually end the live stream. And today we'll be watching, did Kamala Harris just deny Jesus? So I knew about this comment that was made during her rallies, but I love that he took it, kind of honed in on it. You could hear it in just what she says in her response about Jesus. And then you also get it from another angle. So we're going to take a look at that, because this was alarming to me, because some of the other things I saw churches allow Kamala Harris to do while she was on her presidential campaign. So with that being said, guys, happy Saturday. Welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Karen Smith, call me Q, and we are on the corner. We're on the corner, guys. So we're going to hop right in on a Saturday. I'm not going to keep you guys long. Shout out to Yahoo Finance, Kevin O'Leary on tariffs. China doesn't play by the rules. Let's watch.
China and Canada both unveiling their own countermeasures against U.S. tariffs. China will enact a 34% levy on all U.S. imports, and Canada planning to tariff all U.S.-made vehicles at 25%.
So in case you guys can't read this, because it might be, YouTube might have flipped it, it says Canada, 25% tariff on U.S.-made vehicles. China, 34% tariff on all U.S. goods. China imposing 34% tariff on all U.S. goods.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney calling President Trump's protectionist policies a tragedy for global trade.
Our old relationship of steadily deepening integration with the United States is over. Well, this is a tragedy. It is also the new reality. We must respond with both purpose and force.
Joining us now to discuss what's next in tariff negotiations, Kevin O'Leary, O'Leary Ventures Chairman. Kevin, great to have you back with us. Thank you for making the time. I want to start on these tariffs. The market is on track right now for its worst weekly performance since March of 2020. How do you continue to be an advocate for these tariffs, given the sell-off we're seeing, given that I have had every source on our show this morning say that these tariffs will be causing a recession in the United States?
They don't know that yet. They don't know how long the tariff's going to be on. We've never done this before. We've never taken on the entire globe. Usually it's done in trade agreements with specific countries, such as NAFTA, which was Canada and Mexico, or European Union situation. This is unique, over 60 countries. Now,
there's something that Kevin said that's really good. He said we've never done this before in a case where we've never taken it on globally. Normally it's done between a couple of few select countries, usually NAFTA. And he said, but to take it on in this way, this is something new. I like that he starts off with they don't know that, because a lot of the emotion around tariffs is really fear, not understanding what it is, not understanding, okay, putting this in place. All I hear is prices go up. I still hear inflation. This just sounds tariff equals bad, right? So I like that Kevin O'Leary led with, they don't know that. And we don't know that. Historically, it would be done in small groups, maybe countries one at a time, but President Trump took a more global approach to it, where he kind of just said, hey, globally on this date, the U.S. is putting this out, and this is what it's going to look like.
Aspects to these tariffs. Number one is reciprocality against tariffs from one country to another based on products and services that are specific. So if you're charging a 20% tariff in India, it's going to be reciprocated in the United States. And those go away pretty quickly. That actually leads to fair trade. The more complex aspect of these negotiations are around the idea of trade imbalances. And so
okay, trade imbalances. So right now it says country-specific tariff announced. Will go into effect April 9th, 2025. 34% on China, 24% on EU, 24% on Japan, 32% on Taiwan. Trump tariffs a tragedy, they say. Canadian Prime Minister, Canada unveils countermeasures against U.S. autos, as they should.
When you put on tariffs to try and fix trade imbalance, it's difficult because the largest economy on earth is the United States. So really you're starting a behemoth negotiation, and it's happening in every country. You highlighted Canada, but you might as well talk about it.
So it says 46% on Vietnam, 26% on India, 31% on Switzerland, and 10% on the UK.
Britain or even Switzerland, where I am right now, where they have over 30% tariffs imposed 48 hours ago. And so you can assume that behind the scenes are two spheres of negotiations. One is, let's try and reduce the imbalance of trade by buying more stuff from the United States. That's one signal. And the other, which is very easy to fix, is simply remove all tariffs. If you're going to have reciprocal tariffs of 20%, 30%, 40%, just get rid of them, bring them down to zero.
But Kevin, as of this morning, with a 34% retaliatory tariff from China to the United States, we are not getting closer to free trade. We are just getting further into a trade war.
No, China's a whole different story.
Yeah, see, and she's not paying attention to what Kevin O'Leary said when he said, a lot of the reciprocal tariffs, like, if India puts 20% on us, then we put 20% on India. If a country puts 14% on us, then we put 14% on the country. And Kevin O'Leary said that actually leads to fair trade, because those tariffs usually go away fairly quickly. Once a country realizes, okay, if the United States is going to do this, then we're going to do that. And if Trump is not going to let up and take away the first set of tariffs he put initially, and he's like, oh, okay, so you're getting mad that we did this and we were only charging you 2%. And because I went up to 25, you're going to put an additional 20. He's like, okay, so great. So now instead of India being at 25%, you could be at 50% or you could be at 45%. And that's when India will back away and they will say, okay, you know what, we won't impose that extra 14 or that extra 20% retaliatory tariff. So she's not even paying attention to the fact that Kevin O'Leary is saying that all of this retaliatory tariffs and people putting them on us because President Trump is raising them to begin with, all of this is actually in the long run going to lead to free trade, to fair trade.
This isn't about a trade war with China. This is about leveling the playing field on a wide range of issues, including IP law, access to business, access to courts, being compliant with U.S. regulations on securities. There is a laundry list of grievances with China that have been around since they joined the WTO, and none of the administrations previously have ever dealt with China.
So why are tariffs the right way?
No, for the first time. So this has nothing to do with just tariffs. I mean, right now I can't
But that's
litigate.
the tool that the administration is using. Why are tariffs the correct tool if, to your point, these have nothing to do with tariffs?
What tool do you suggest they do when nothing else
Well,
has
I'm not the
worked?
president. It's not my job.
Well, exactly. So let him do his work. China's different than all the other countries.
But it's not
China has to be
working, right?
governed. Look, I'm having lots of problems with China, as are millions of other companies in the United States that try to do business there. They do not play by the rules. They're going to have to start doing it pretty soon. That's a different conversation. If you want to talk about the markets correcting, yes, they are. By the way, markets correct every 18 months up to 20%. You're watching it happen right now. It's not pleasant. You can't blame just the tariffs for this. These have been very expensive markets now for almost 18 months. Now they're having a correction. I think what matters is this a recession signal, yes or no? And how long will these tariffs be on? I would say 50% of these tariffs across these 60 countries will be negotiated pretty quickly, including the Canadian situation you made details on. Canada's different because they're in the middle of an election. Carney's not an elected official.
Nope.
He has no mandate from the Canadian people.
Nope.
He's just an interim prime minister when they threw out Justin Trudeau a few weeks ago. He's got to get elected first, so he's going to say anything he possibly can to try and distract Canadian voters from the fact that his party bankrupted the country. 25% of Canadians live in poverty. They have had no GDP.
And there it is. Kevin O'Leary said it. He's going to say whatever he can. Whatever he can. I hope when my Canadian friends come back and watch this live stream, they listen to these words that he's saying. He said it. He said Carney's going to say whatever he can to keep the Canadian people distracted from the fact that his administration bankrupt the country. So if somebody's like, well, how did Carney's administration bankrupt the country? He was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. Even the former prime minister of Britain said this. They do not even like how Carney ran the bank. They are like, if the Canadians choose to put Mark Carney as their prime minister, Canada will go bankrupt. The country will go down a horrible path. And I've said it over and over again. I said, if Canada makes Mark Carney their prime minister, there is a good chance that Trump's trolling about the 51st state will come true. And I am one person that I have went on the record to say that I think it's actually disrespectful for a place to be an entire country and for someone to say, hey, you want to be a piece of lead in our pocket. But nonetheless, because Canada is doing so horribly economically, this is not a secret. You have the simple investor out in Canada, Todd, who has already co-signed this and who has affirmed how bad Canada's doing. The Elevate podcast out in Canada. The Toronto Sun. You have Jordan Peterson, who's a Canadian. You have Elon Musk. You have James Basili, the co-founder of BlackBerry. All of these people who are very prominent people within Canada who understand the Canadian politics, they're all like, hey, we're in a lot of trouble here, and we can't let Mark Carney be the prime minister. Todd from The Simple Investor, he always goes on record to say that he has a hard time saying that Mark Carney is the prime minister. Why is that? Because he's a disrespectful man? No, because the guy hasn't been elected. He hasn't been elected. Justin Trudeau stepped down, and this is the person who steps up. And from what I understand, in Canadian politics, they're definitely different from the U.S. politics in the sense, if something happens to President Trump, we already know and expect J.D. Vance to step up and be next in command. Like, no one would be like, oh, J.D. Vance is not an elected official. He has no mandate from the people. Of course he does. He's the president's vice president. We already know that this is how it works. But apparently, I don't know where Carney was at as far as placement. I don't know where the economic advisor would stand. I don't know if this, like, compared to the United States, is like the treasury and like a cabinet. My Canadian family, you guys got to shout out and let me know how that works exactly, because Canada is my second most country watched on my channel. So this is why I follow Canadian news the way that I do, and I'm keeping up with their election because, again, having friends, family, people who I care about in Canada, I want them to pick the right candidate. It would be no different for us over here, right? Like, we already knew we were in a really bad position and that this was a very important election. So I think Kevin O'Leary is just making a lot of great points here. But I love the fact that he drove it home there. He hit the nail on the head when he said that they have to remember that Mark Carney is not an elected official. He still has to get elected. He is going to say anything he possibly can to the Canadian people to keep them distracted from remembering that he is the one that bankrupted the entire country. This is why I say time and time again, Canada, don't do this. Don't vote for this guy. Do not do this. Pay more attention to your politics. Even those of you guys that are like, I hate the news, I hate politics, I don't want to be involved, I'm not going to vote for anybody. Don't do those things. Like, pay attention to this stuff so you guys make sure you put the right person in charge to manage and run your country.
The countries will be negotiated pretty quickly, including the Canadian situation you made details on. Canada's different because they're in the middle of an election. Carney's not an elected official. He has no mandate from the Canadian people. He's just an interim prime minister when they threw out Justin Trudeau a few weeks ago. He's got to get elected first, so he's going to say anything he possibly can to try and distract Canadian voters from the fact that his party bankrupted the country. 25% of Canadians live in poverty. They have had no GDP growth for 10 years. There's no investment capital in Canada anymore, and the dollar's lost 41% of its value. Canadians can't go to the United States because they can't afford it under Carney's leadership in his party. So those are different issues too. There's a lot of things going on at the same time.
A lot of things that economists tell me are not fixable via tariffs, but I am curious from...
A lot of things economists tell me are not fixable via tariffs. It's like, okay, yeah. You know, just because somebody's an economist doesn't mean they understand tariffs. You would think that they would, but sometimes their politics will get in the way of their natural common understanding. And all of a sudden, like, I mean, hey, it's a touchy subject, right? It's one of the reasons why, other than religion and pay, politics are one of the things at work that you're supposed to be on the hush-hush about. Because it gets the people going, right? It gets people riled up. It's interesting. 25% of Canadians live in poverty, and the Canadian dollar has decreased, gone down by 41%. That's troublesome. That's troublesome to say the least. And you know, he spit out all of those facts, and she didn't spit anything back to him. All she said was, yeah, problems that economists tell me tariffs won't solve. I'm like, okay, lady, okay.
Those are different issues too. There's a lot of things going on at the same time.
A lot of things that economists tell me are not fixable via tariffs, but I am curious from your perspective then, why do you think that we are moving towards a negotiation where these tariffs are not going to be as bad as they seem right now, at least for financial markets? What is it that gives you confidence that there is going to be a negotiation reached?
Because there's a good reason to do it. I mean, you got to distinguish the noise versus the signal. I've said this countless times about Trump. Let's take the Canadian situation, which we've been talking about. If you combine those economies, I'm not saying buying the country, but if you combine the economies, which seems impossible to do given the rhetoric and what's going on right now, but the truth is, the signal is it would be much stronger against China if there were no tariffs between Canada and the United States and they had a common currency and they protected the northern border, not the 49th parallel. Now, the Canadians know that's worth it because 75% of their output has been sold to the United States for over 120 years. 17 states call Canada the #1 trading partner. 28 states, in addition to those 17, #2 trading partner is Canada. So it'd be economic suicide not to work this out. The obvious answer is to remove all tariffs, and that will happen, my guess is, right after the election when the Canadians make their choice about who they want to lead them. That person will fly to Washington immediately and start negotiations, which I would call NAFTA 3. But right now, that's not happening because Carney's trying to use this whole Trump issue as fulcrum to try and distract Canadians away from the facts that he wiped out the country. Maybe he'll get elected, maybe he won't. Nobody knows right now. But nothing's going to happen on the Canadian situation until the election's over in just over 5 weeks.
So let's talk about the Canadian citizen reaction, because we've already seen evidence of Canadian citizens boycotting American products. We've heard from CEOs that they are concerned about that. Even airline CEOs and the governor of New York being concerned about Canadians not wanting to travel to the United States. Are you getting that pushback from your fellow citizens in Canada?
No. You can understand if you've got the froth and rhetoric around an election cycle why you would get some of that. And some Canadians are unhappy, there's no question about it, but Canadians are not stupid. They understand the economic advantage of working and selling to the United States and having no tariff whatsoever. The behemoth economy is a golden jewel of an idea, and everybody gets that joke. Americans do not hate Canadians. Canadians do not hate Americans.
Nope.
Politicians have lots of rhetoric when they're trying to get elected. That's what they're doing here. All of this will pass too. What drives everybody long term are economic interests. And that's what really you should focus on here. This will pass, things will calm down, more rational minds will sit at a table across from each other in about 6 weeks in Washington and in Ottawa.
More rational than the president?
At the end of the day, the president's not an idiot either. Neither is Ludnick or Burgum or any of those people negotiating these deals right now. You have to look at the economic opportunity. They're not idiots. They're negotiating. This is a giant, nasty negotiation. A little bit of politics and a little dash will do of politics because of the crazy timing of the Canadian election. Trump has a 4-year mandate. At least 2 of them are in a majority situation. If he's going to do all this volatile stuff, which he's doing right now, he's got to do it now because he may not have a majority mandate after the midterms. So that's why you're getting such an accelerated pace of policy. These tariffs, as I said earlier, 50% of them can be easily melted away to a...
And when he says he might not have a majority mandate, he's talking about the fact that we have him as the presidency, we have a Republican Senate, we have a Republican, pretty much the Congress rules and the Republicans are ruling Congress right now. There's a majority mandate on the Republicans. So that's why he's saying, that's why you're seeing this legislation and the laws and everything happen so fast. Because he has a mandate by these people and he might not have that same majority mandate during midterms or primaries. So I think all of the points he's hitting on are like, he's spot on, but this the person who's interviewing him is not doing a good job at calling out some of his points or speaking to some of his points, so at least people can get a better understanding of what's going on. But I think Kevin O'Leary is doing a good job at explaining it.
Reciprocal zero tariffs. And then this trade deficit is a trickier situation country by country. The only reason there's a deficit in Canada is the fact that so much oil is imported from Alberta into the U.S. economy. If you took away oil, Canadians buy more goods and services from the United States than vice versa. There is no trade deficit ex oil. So that is obvious too. The numbers are the numbers. It will get resolved. And I think calmer minds will prevail after the election is over in Canada.
Kevin, I want to end on TikTok. Both President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance saying a deal to sell the app will be reached before this weekend's deadline. And then on Air Force One, President Trump said tariffs on China could be part of that negotiation. Take a listen.
A performance that truly matters. Get tickets now at Shenyun.
We have the situation with TikTok where China will probably say, we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate.
So if tariffs and TikTok are now getting tied by the president, where does that put your bid for TikTok in terms of your negotiation power? Where does your bid stand right now?
Well, there's many bids. There's no question there's a deal for TikTok on the table, and that will get one thing with certainty. Tomorrow before midnight, an extension, my guess is 90 days. It'll be punted down the road because the details of the TikTok deal are very difficult. Let me explain 2 big issues. China has not said what they want to do yet. The current idea is to get a copy of the code and make an American version of it. And we're not sure that passes muster with the law. If you can download, anybody in America can go get the Supreme Court order. The top of page 5 makes it very clear you can't use the Chinese algorithm. So what we're going to have to do, if that's the plan, is get an indemnification from Congress or change the law to make it legal to use that. And that would require 51 votes in changing it, and maybe they could slip it into the Reconciliation Act. All of these are unknowns. But right now, the penalty would be about $820 billion. That's $5,000 per user account per 24 hours times 172 million. And no capital stack of any of the syndicates formed can take that risk. So we need clarity on what's allowed and what isn't based on the law that was passed by Congress and the Supreme Court order. Remember, it was 9-0. There was no ambiguity in it. And so somebody has to figure that out and either give financiers, both the debt and equity structures, some kind of indemnification against that penalty coming back. Because remember, that law will last long past Trump's administration. So if you have an ambitious attorney general that perhaps is a Democrat, you'll get sued for $800 billion.
Yeah.
Nobody can afford that. So we've got to solve that problem. We've got to figure that out. So these are the things that we're going to have to get worked out in the next 90 days to get this deal done.
Yeah,
China and Canada both.
He's right. Like if someone knows that, he said it's spot on too. He's like, if you have an attorney general who's a Democrat, then yeah, he's like, then we're not in a good spot right now. We know the current attorney general is not a Democrat because that's Pam Bondi, and she's very much in support of the Trump administration. So with her there, you probably be fine. But the question lies in what happens when President Trump is not there anymore and the cabinet changes. And now we have a Democrat. He's like, you're going to get sued right under $1 billion, and no one's willing to take that hit. And that makes sense. But, also with that being said, like I said, I thought Kevin did a great job at explaining, the tariffs. He said, listen, the market has a change that recorrects itself every 18 months. He's like, so that's what you're seeing. This has been an expensive market over the last 18 months, and now it's correcting itself. I would say he's pretty spot on about that. I've said plenty of times on live joking that I don't pay attention to the stock market right now because it'll make my nerves bad. And it's very true. I go by an analogy that Warren Buffett put out a long time ago in one of his books. In case you guys don't know who Warren Buffett is, most of you might, but he's probably one of the most lucrative, successful men who's played in the stock market historically, like of all time, one of them. And he says, he uses the analogy of Mr. Market, and he says, it's like working at a gas station, and every single day, a customer by the name of Mr. Market is going to come in. And let's just say you own the gas station, and he says every single day Mr. Market's going to come in and he's going to offer you a price for the gas station. And he says sometimes the price is going to seem like it's a great price, and sometimes the price is going to seem like it's ridiculous because it's so low. And he said the good thing about Mr. Market is that you can ignore him every single day until he comes to you and he has a price that you feel like is worth it. So as far as the stock market, when the stock market is being volatile like that, I don't pay it much mind. I mean, I didn't pay it much mind during the Biden administration. Of course, I like everybody else, I can say I could have made more money. But just because I know that it offsets, it corrects itself, it comes back, and it does all those things. I'm not the person to just be checking my portfolio like every hour or even every day. I just don't do that. But some people are, and that's what's causing the crisis with some people, because they're watching that stuff every day. I'm like, I'll pay attention to it probably about 9 months to a year from now. But right now, I can just let it do its thing. It can go crazy on its own and not drive me crazy. That's the way I look at that. So switching gears, we're going to jump over to Yemek Zamanin. Shout out to him, 159,000 subscribers. Sean Hannity. So he's going to talk a little bit about the Democrats and how they have forgot historically that they actually were in support of tariffs and how passionate about tariffs they once were. He's also going to talk a little bit about Kamala Harris making a speech, and then he goes a little bit into how AOC is actually beating Chuck Schumer in a poll about the next Democratic leader, which I thought was very interesting. I'm like, okay, I know that they're getting desperate. I know that they're not happy and they need a voice. I don't know if AOC, if they're ready for AOC yet. I don't know if that's going to do much, if that's going to benefit the Democratic Party that much. But let's see what Sean Hannity has to say about it.
And welcome to Hannity, and tonight another big show. Coming up, huge economic numbers as results pour in from President Trump and his reciprocal tariffs. A new poll showing that Chucky Schumer is about to be dethroned by AOC. And telling you, the real leader of the Democratic Party. Also, Dr. Oz, just confirmed, will be here for his first TV interview since joining the Trump administration. And we are going to show you, by far, the best political pranks from the creator of the Note Boys, Kyle Forgard. Take a look at your screen. You see this woman right here? Take a look at her. She's voicing her support for illegal immigration. What happens next? I promise you, you will laugh so hard you'll have tears in your eyes. Anyway, Kyle will give us his thoughts on why President Trump continues to surge in popularity among young Americans.
So right here on the side, Sean Hannity is playing shout out to at the Note Boys. I watched a couple of their videos before too, and it's like they'll go around with these signs from the two different presidential candidates, and like they went to like all of I guess you could say the blue areas and the red areas first, and they went with like there was like a Tim Walz and Kamala Harris sign. And he's like, yeah, I work with the Tim Walz Kamala Harris campaign. He's like, I just wanted to put a sign here and leave it on your front yard. And the lady's like, the lady's like, I don't give a crap, move it. And he's like, no, I'm gonna leave it there because we're trying to put signs around the neighborhood. And the lady's like, get that, she's cursing, but she's like, get that crap off my property. And he's like, what's wrong with you? You don't support tampons in boys' bathrooms? And she's like, no, I don't support tampons in boys' bathrooms. And he's like, why not? And she's like, because tampons are for women. Where are men going to stick it up there? Like they go around and they just do this to like different neighborhoods. I watched it a couple of times. It's pretty funny.
Donald Trump went on their podcast. I was on it yesterday. Anyway, last but certainly not least, the great Jimmy Fallon will join us to wrap up this week's other news, including a fresh word salad from Kamala Harris, who has reemerged to root against Donald Trump and cheer for economic suffering for hardworking men and women. What a shock. Take a look.
We are seeing organizations stay quiet.
Lord.
We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things, I'm not here, so I told you so.
Wow. Could you imagine 4 years of that? I want to take a moment and thank every American that voted for Donald Trump, because you prevented this country from having 4 years of that. Now, let's be very clear. After a really humiliating loss for her, Kamala Harris is actively rooting, for American suffering? She doesn't want Donald Trump to succeed. She doesn't want Americans to have a better life. I thought Democrats cared about working men and women. Just talk. She just wants to feel better about herself. And she's not the only one. Barack Hussein Obama, back in the news, chiming in and calling for collective sacrifice. Sounds like Jimmy Carter. Take a look.
It has been easy during most of our lifetimes to say you are progressive, or say you are for social justice, or say you're for free speech, and not have to pay a price for it. And now we're at one of those moments where, it's not enough just to say you're for something. You may actually have to do something and possibly sacrifice a little bit.
Excuse me, the people that want to silence, and the people that want to cancel, and the people that boycott, and the people that are woke, and the word police, that would be his party. In other words, but if you listen to Obama, he too is rooting for Americans to suffer so that he can finally get Trump once and for all. Of course, Obama won't experience any suffering himself. He has his many multiple mansions all across the country in places like beautiful Martha's Vineyard. He gets to hobnob with arrogant, rich, and famous jackasses like his buddy and loser jackass George Clooney, and we have a message for him later in the show. Now, for Obama, one big political game, doesn't really care about the quality of your life, the suffering you had the last 4 years. He remains silent about the lies on immigration, the biggest national security threat in our lifetime. And he just wants to say anything to trash Donald Trump, because not only did Kamala lose, he stood up for Kamala, and Kamala lost. For example, here's what he said about Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Take a look. I don't think what we just witnessed.
Okay, so I'm going to read it because YouTube might have flipped it for you guys. It says, I don't think what we just witnessed in terms of economic policy and tariffs is going to be good for America. Thank you, Barack.
In terms of economic policy and tariffs is going to be good for America. But let's go back a few years ago. He said the complete opposite, and we've got the tape. Take a look.
We can't keep passing unfair trade deals like NAFTA that put special interests over workers' interests.
Now, this is in Lorain, Ohio, February 24th, 2008. Okay, guys. That's almost, what's that, 17 years ago now? Okay, this is Barack. This is flashback. Obama's tough talk on trade. He sounds a lot like the Republicans here, but the Democrats have been losing their mind over President Trump's policies. And this is the type of hypocrisy I do not like to see.
Keep passing unfair trade deals like NAFTA that put special interests over workers' interests. Well, I want to be very clear. I don't think NAFTA has been good for America, and I never have. I didn't just start criticizing unfair trade deals like NAFTA because I started running for office. I'm doing it because I've seen what happens to a community when the factory closes down and jobs move overseas. It's also proper for advanced economies like the United States to insist on reciprocity for nations like China that are no longer solely poor countries, to make sure that they're providing access to their markets and that they stop taking intellectual property and hacking our servers.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Oh, top Democrats have always been championing reciprocal tariffs. Oh, that is until this Tuesday, Liberation Day, when Donald Trump announced his plan to actually put it into action. The exact same tariffs that they are on record supporting.
Yep.
To go up.
Exactly.
That the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%, whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%. Is that reciprocal?
What?
So let me go back here. This is U.S.-China trade, the status quo. 1995, so C-SPAN, June 27, 1996. This is almost 96. Okay, no. Okay, I see where it's at. 96. Hold on. So tariffs at. Yeah, this is the okay, they did it in 1996, but they're looking at the 1995 trade deficit. So it says 1995 trade deficit, 34 billion, right? Tariffs, average US MFN tariff on Chinese products, 2%. That's where the US was at. Average Chinese MFN tariff on US products, 35%. Exports, the US is still at 2%. China is at 33%. This is crazy. And this is why President Trump said that they would get upset. This is what Americans don't. And so in 1995, this is what this looked like. And this is ridiculous. So even if there was a tariff in place by other administrations, this is what President Trump and people in his cabinet mean when they say that the U.S. has been getting screwed on tariffs. And this is why people like Kevin O'Leary, a lot of some of the news anchors and a lot of the finance guys from Bloomberg, they're saying that people really do not understand what tariffs are. 2%. This is why President Trump said, why would they get mad? We're charging less than them. But they're going to get mad because some of them weren't being charged anything. So did he mean anything like literally the number 0? Yes and no. Some countries, we didn't have any tariff on there. Honestly, we didn't. And then other countries, it's ridiculous. They might have had 35, 40, 50%, and the U.S. was at 2%, 3%, 6%. Don't ask me what administrations had us that low, while other countries were at 45, 35, and 76%. But I can assure you, they were probably liberal administrations.
That the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%.
And I can't even guarantee that when we have, right here, flashback, Dems' tough stance on trade with China. When we have historically the Democrats in favor of tariffs and saying that the U.S. is not doing good with trades. But for some reason, President Trump wins in 2024. He becomes the president again in 2025. He says, you know what? I'm going to deal with all of this ridiculous, nasty debt, starting off with tariffs because I know what it did for America in the 1800s. And everyone loses their mind.
Whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%. Is that reciprocal?
What they have said is that we need to not worry about manufacturing in America because what we should establish is a policy of unfettered free trade. We don't need tariffs. What we need is to allow corporate America the freedom to throw American workers out on the street.
So I have been one of the chief critics of status quo on trade.
Chuck Schumer.
Americans, and I share this, resent all those academics who, anytime you try to do anything with China, they say protectionist, trade war. The bottom line is simple. China's eating our lunch. China's rapacious.
Eating our lunch.
You know what Tate can do? And just remind you what hypocrites, what liars they are. Now, instead of working together with President Trump on a policy they've openly advocated for and enacting a trade policy they've always supported, Democrats, they are fomenting panic and hysteria. As per usual, well, this hand-wringing, it will be short-lived. According to the White House, Vietnam, they're already...
It says, the Wall Street Journal says, Trump says Vietnam wants to cut its tariffs to zero. That's not surprising. That's alluding to some of the things Kevin O'Leary said, where he said a lot of this stuff, when tariffs drop and retaliatory tariffs come out, a lot of this stuff is going to be worked out, I think, fairly quickly, because countries are going to see what President Trump is doing, and some of them are going to say, you know what, okay, how about if we charge you guys no tariffs? And then President Trump will say, great, how about we charge you guys no tariffs? That's what he's trying to get to. It's not like he wants to just, charge everybody like Singapore and Indonesia and all of these people, Vietnam, 10%, 15, 25% because he's bored and he just wants money. He's doing it because where we're at, it's not fair. It's where the United States is at. These countries already have their numbers put in place. They've had them put in place long ago, and all they've done historically is raise them. And all the United States has done is either left them there or implemented none at all.
Begging, they're offering to eliminate tariffs on the U.S. Cambodia also desperate for a deal with Donald Trump, with reports that the country is willing to slash their tariffs from 35% to 5%. Reciprocal.
30% drop.
Will benefit.
No kidding.
That's the beauty of it. They have the choice, free and fair.
Right here, the New York Post, it says General Motors, Nissan to boost production at U.S. plants due to Trump tariffs. So they're boosting production. See, it sounds bad, but it's good, right? It sounds bad, but it's good. General Motors, Nissan to boost production at U.S. plants due to tariffs. So I'm like, is this good or is it bad? Of course it's a good thing. They're going to boost production, which means what? That they have to hire people because there's more jobs. But they want to still allude to the fact that, oh, these tariffs are going to ruin the United States, as if what the prior administration wasn't doing was already taking us down that pathway.
Fair trade or reciprocal tariffs, up to them. Here at home, both General Motors, Nissan, they're working fast to expand their manufacturing plants right here in the USA. High-paying career jobs. There are dozens of other countries now working behind the scenes to lower their own tariffs and finally create a level playing field with the United States that they have been abusing and taking advantage of because we've had politicians that let them do it. Most importantly, as FoxNews.com, an opinion piece points out, quote, Liberation Day is about investment, not in financial.
So FoxNews.com covers this. It says Liberation Day is about investment, not in financial derivatives or foreign production chains, but in our own people.
Derivatives or foreign product chains, but in our own people to create jobs for them. Now, this is about putting America and manufacturing plants right here in the U.S. Liberation Day is about investment. It means to lower their own tariffs and finally create a level playing field with the United States that they have been abusing and taking advantage of because we've had politicians that let them do it.
And that's the main reason why all of this has happened. Everyone's blaming Donald Trump, and they're saying, why is he doing this with all these tariffs? But Sean Hannity he just hit that nail on the head. He's like, this is something that's been happening where the United States has been abused and taken advantage of. Well, why has that been happening? Because politicians have allowed it to happen. It depends on what administration is in the House at the time. And, we've seen historically, Democrats are on board with what President Trump is doing and saying now. But for some reason, they just don't seem to want to work with him to do this. I don't know if it's because he's not a career politician, if it's just because he's Donald Trump and he has enough money that he doesn't need, the president's salary or anything like that. But for whatever reason it is, they just don't want to work with him.
Most importantly, as FoxNews.com, an opinion piece points out, quote, Liberation Day is about investment, not in financial derivatives or foreign product chains, but in our own people to create jobs for them. Now, this is about putting America and American jobs first. That has been Donald Trump's sole mission from day one. It was very clear during the campaign. And by the way, we are seeing massive results. In March, the jobs report blew.
FoxBusiness.com covered it. It says U.S. economy added jobs at a faster pace in March.
Past every forecast, a whopping impressive 228,000 new jobs. We'll call that the Trump effect. In contrast, Canada, they lost it.
So, in March, a whopping 228,000 jobs. So, over 250,000 jobs just in March. And Bloomberg said Canada loses 33,000 jobs, the most since 2022 bonds rally.
33,000 jobs. So let's be clear. Our country, we are not a charity for the rest of the world. We compete with the rest of the world. They've been taking advantage of us. They've been abusing us. Frankly, we've let them do it. And now we're finally playing to win. Here with Reaction, the host of the hit news show, My View, Laura Trump is with us. You know, first respond to the hypocrisy. I mean, when you play all these Democrats that sound like your father-in-law, that makes me laugh on the one hand. On the other hand, it's pathetic.
Oh, well, it is pathetic. And I mean, look, Sean, all of these people suffer from the same sort of Trump derangement syndrome that requires anything Donald Trump champions, of course, they have to oppose. That's what this is all about. They are trying to make people hysterical. They are trying to, foment anxiety right now around the country. The reality is all of those people in all of those clips were politicians when they talked about making tariffs reciprocal, when they talked about China eating our lunch, when they said all of the things that Donald Trump is now actually taking action on. They had an opportunity to do something as a politician. They did absolutely nothing. They are the reason Donald Trump ultimately decided to run for president. He decided to do it because the country needed him. And, it's sort of amazing to hear them say these things now. Thank you, President Trump, for actually making it free, fair, and reciprocal trade. You talked about Cambodia. You talked about Vietnam. People are actually coming to the table, and I think my husband said it best. He put out something on X the other day, a post, and he said, I have seen this man, Donald Trump, my whole life. You don't want to test him in this. He will win. And believe me, the countries are coming to the table right now, and it will be to the benefit of the United States of America. But to hear those people, Obama, Schumer, Pelosi, they're the reason we're here right now, Sean. They sold this country out. They allowed America to get ripped off. They allowed, our jobs in manufacturing to go overseas. And now Donald Trump is cleaning up their mess. Promises made, promises kept, just like he always does.
So she said, her husband said it best. He put out a post on X. I believe she's married to Eric, right? I believe this is Eric Trump's wife. Let me double check. Yep. So he said, I've seen this man, Donald Trump, my whole life, and you don't want to test him in this, he will win. So he's talking about his father. And he knows his father. If anyone would know this man better than we would, it would be his wife and his children, right? So he's saying, you don't want to test him in this, he will win. I remember in the Oval Office a couple weeks ago, President Trump was doing a press conference, and one of the reporters asked him, President Trump, if a country comes out and they decide to put even higher tariffs, or they decide to be more aggressive, will that cause you to change your mind? And he said, no. He said, no, I don't think, I'm not going to change my mind at all. That's exactly what he said. So this is something that President Trump was talking about during his rallies, like before he ever even won. And a lot of people were not paying attention to what he was saying because they didn't think he was going to win. So even though he was talking about tariffs a lot, and I'm talking about in the very beginning, he was being transparent about this. People they weren't looking it up. They weren't trying to figure out what tariffs were or why he would go there, because they really didn't think he was going to win.
Okay, so we really have two choices here, Laura. We're going to be a sucker nation, or continue to be one, abused, taken advantage of, right? Democrats are all talk. They never did anything. They never changed a thing. But that's basically the difference. You have the establishment types, the institutionalists, if you will. They are incapable of thinking outside the box. All that President Trump does is think outside the box, and he's perpetually negotiating and we're going to get new deals. This will become a new normal probably very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? His outside the box thinking is the reason that he isn't all talk. He is all action. Think about the number of things that so many people in his position, so many other presidents promised to do. Donald Trump actually delivered on the promises he made. If you look at the southern border, people have been talking about securing it for years. Donald Trump got it done. Look at China. You just heard Chuck Schumer there in one of those clips talk about China's eating our lunch. Donald Trump is the one who got a trade agreement during his first administration with China and was on the verge of a second one. You know, look at moving the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. How many presidents promised to do that? Donald Trump is about action. He's about action for this country. He's about ensuring that the future of America is bright. So whether it's with these reciprocal tariffs and hopefully no tariffs at all, whether it's with DOGE, making sure that we don't have this bloated, federal government that's taking our money, we don't know where it's going, and it's obviously been going to some pretty ridiculous causes. Thank you, Elon Musk, for making sure we understand that. He wants to set this country up so that in 4 years, when he is no longer in the White House, America is set back on the right track, and we are so grateful that he's there to do it.
All right, Laura, we appreciate you coming on. By the way, your show is doing so well. I don't even know if you'll talk to me in here. It's doing that well. You're becoming that popular.
Thank
We're
you.
very happy for you.
Thank
All right. Anyway, tonight I do implore Chucky Schumer to get to work on fine-tuning his resume because pretty soon he might be out of a job. Look at this new poll. You'll love it. Socialist.
So I don't like this poll because it's from Politico. And if we know anything about Politico, we know Politico, they ain't right. That's all we're going to say about them. They ain't right. So Politico covered it. It says poll. AOC leads Schumer in head-to-head New York primary. Matchup by double digits. Oh my God, she's beating Charles Schumer by double digits. Okay.
That's right. The squad leader, AOC, is beating Schumer by double digits in the upcoming New York Senate race if there was a primary. Joining us now with reaction, Project 21 chairman Horace Cooper, Fox News contributor Miranda Devine. Oh, I would love to see this matchup, Miranda. Love it.
Yeah, it's pretty delicious, really, but I think it just shows you the depths that the Democratic Party has fallen to, that someone as sort of or ignorant, let's say, as Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez could take over from Schumer, the leader of the party now, in the Senate. And it also shows you the anger against Schumer, who has really sold out his party for many years, and he's not been a good leader. And now I think the left are saying, well, you're not strong enough, you're not standing up to Donald Trump enough. I have no sympathy for Chuck Schumer or really the Democrat Party for the state that they find themselves in. But honestly, AOC is now going to be old enough to run for president, and I would not be surprised if she tries.
Yeah, let's get your take, Horace.
I mean, that just sounds so crazy. AOC is almost old enough to run for president. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is wrong with the Democratic Party? I mean, I don't know if I agree with her when she says he sold out his party for some time. I mean, I know they get mad at Chuck all of the time, but it seems like ever since he voted in favor of the spending bill that they can't get over it. Then it's like, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And they're not letting this thing slide. They're not. And I don't know if they're going to make the best decision by doing this, but hey, if she beats him in the polls, she beats him in the polls. The numbers are the numbers.
Look, when you're having a problem at your house because you don't like what the electrician is doing, you don't bring in an arsonist. I'm not certainly no fan of Chuck Schumer, but the progressives should keep in mind that you shouldn't go completely crazy. Mark Halperin said a week before the November election that it was very likely, if trends demonstrated where they were headed, that we would see the kind of mental health issues that we're observing. Now, in America, there are psychotropic drugs that are amazing and could stop you from scratching up every Tesla that you see, and also from going after so much of the party has supported high tariffs, from voting almost unanimously with Rand Paul to not have tariffs in Canada.
Exactly.
This insanity hurts the party, and it makes it difficult for the American people to trust that there anybody there that can lead. Putting AOC in charge in the Senate would just be the last example of going completely and totally crazy. They seem to have lost their minds.
All right, answer a question for both of you, because I contend that the radicals run that party, and Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries will do whatever they say. I want predictions. Will AOC, if she challenges Chuck Schumer, would she beat him? Miranda, yes or no?
I think so. I think that's the way the party's going, and the anger at Schumer and the sort of desire for fresh blood and youth.
Yeah, I think she's got a darn good shot. I really do. Horace, love your take.
She'll win in a horse race. It will be so fast, so impressive, and just another sign of just the depths that this once mighty party has fallen.
All right.
I mean, I don't know what to say there, because I agree with, here's why I agree a lot with Horace, right? It's just because of some of the things that they've said. Now, I personally might not hold all these stances against AOC, but they have said things like she's way too far left. You know, some of the things that she supports is not what the American people really want. You know, you had Jesse Waters talk about her Green Deal. That wasn't too bad. But again, I'm just saying I don't know if it's the time now. Like, I'm not saying there's never a time, but I don't know if it's the time now. And I've been adamant about saying that the Democrats are pretty tone deaf post-election. They were pre-election. It doesn't seem to have changed. And it's worrisome to me because they're not paying attention. Like, I want this to be bipartisan, so I want America to have more than one party to choose from. But right now, what I've seen from the Democrats for the last couple of months, it's like, dude, you guys are like you're not going to win any terms if you keep going this route. And if I've said it so many times on the live, and I'll keep saying it until it actually happens, but if you guys think that this can't happen, there was a time where the Republicans did not do the greatest job for the American people, and they did not like that, and the American people took the presidency from them in the sense that for 5 terms straight, the Democrats won. The American people put the Democrats in office. And this is around 1929 when the stock market crash was happening, and American people were not in great shape, and the Republicans were not doing anything to help. They were being extremely conservative, as they can be, right? So, hey, that pissed the American people off, and they were like, we need some help. So they put Democrats in office 5 terms straight. I feel like history is about to repeat itself if the Democrats don't do something soon. But you guys let me know what you think about that part. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. Shout out to Anthony Brian Logan. I wanted to make sure I was on the right tab. 1.01 million subscribers. If you guys do not know Anthony Logan, please go to his channel and check it out when you get a chance. He covers news very much from a conservative side, but I think he's very fair. And I like his take on things. He does a lot of commentary across the board. So you guys check out his channel when you get a shot. Byron Donalds responds to Jasmine Crockett's racist remarks. Let's take a look.
Florida House Rep Byron Donalds responded to Texas House Rep Jasmine Crockett after she attacked him for being married to a white woman. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Byron Donalds responding, clapping back to Jasmine Crockett after she attacked him for being married to a white woman. Now, I don't really know why Jasmine Crockett did that. I mean, I understand the context. The context was she thinks that Byron Donalds just does whatever the white man tells him, and she thinks he's quote-unquote whitewashed. So him being married to a white woman just kind of aids in her thought process about Byron Donalds. It's weird for her to do that because once you attack someone for who they're married to, and who they have kids with, now you're bringing in the wife and the kids. That's below the belt. And you also open yourself up to criticism. Jasmine Crockett, you are 44 years old, never been married, and you don't have any children. So what's going on? It's easier for women to get those things than it is for a man to get those things, yet the man you're attacking has it and you don't. Why would you do that? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with not having kids and not being married, but when you attack someone else who does have kids and who is married, then I don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, what's really going on? Now, before I go any further, let's get into the actual clip here. This is from Joe Pags. Shout out to Joe Pags. I will link to his video and his channel in the box. If you want to see it there without my commentary, you know where to go. If you're on IG, Facebook,
Joe Pags also does reactions to, mainly, and does interviews to, politicians, more conservative leaning types of news. He actually got a chance to interview Byron Donalds. I got a chance to watch that. So you guys, shout out to him. When you get a chance, go back and watch that if you can.
Senator, visit a link in the bio. Go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
It's a clapback you've got to see. You probably heard what Jasmine Crockett said about Byron Donalds on that guy Lenny's radio show. She sat there and called out his wife because of her race, and then went on this rant. Now, I interviewed Byron Donalds a little while ago. You've got to see his reaction. Do not stop watching this. It's going to blow your mind.
Now, first of all, Joe Pags, your voice, amazing. It's butter smooth, it's perfect. That's voice goals right there. So shout out to Joe Pags for the voice.
And if we continue to put people into office, and that even means some of our kinfolk who definitely are not our kinfolk, such as Byron Donalds, who are going to continue to say that, the fact that you sitting around talking about life was better under Jim Crow,
Now, I want to pause right quick. If you didn't catch my other video.
Okay, yeah, context, because I know what he's going to say here. So when Jasmine Crockett is talking about, you're talking about life was better under Jim Crow. Okay, so Byron Donalds didn't say it in the sense where it's like life was better under Jim Crow because any laws that existed to oppress black people, I think that was better. That was not the context in which he was talking. When he was talking about that, what he was really referring to was the two-parent household when it came to the black community, right? So during the Jim Crow era, I believe that the rate, let's go with 100 out of 100%. The percentage that the black household had a two-parent household was at 80% during the Jim Crow era, right? And around the same time, I believe the white household was at 95%. So black household, and the reason why it was even being looked at or scrutinized during the Jim Crow era, and it was being scrutinized during that time, is because that number was actually low. So 80% was actually low during the Jim Crow era for the black family to have a two-parent household. It should have been higher than that. But Byron Donalds says that it was better during that time because if you fast forward 35 years, would put us to about where we are right now. That number is almost obsolete. The number of two-parent households in the black community, it's embarrassingly low. Let's just put it like that. So, when Byron Donalds says that, I hate the fact that it's like if you're gonna quote something somebody said because you just don't like the fact that he brought up that era, that's one thing. But don't take it completely out of context, like because Byron Donalds has a white wife and like he has a white wife and he said that times was better during the Jim Crow era. He didn't mean it like that.
I'm talking about life was better under Jim Crow.
Now I want to pause right quick. If you didn't catch my other video, what Byron Donalds said about Jim Crow is that the truth is families were together more during that period of time than they are right now. That's just the facts.
Yeah.
It is what it is. The single parent household rate was much lower in the black community. As I said before, we had an 80% two-parent household rate in 1965. 80% two-parent household rate. That was considered a crisis because it was too low.
Yeah.
It should have been 95%, which was the white two-parent household rate. Fast forward to...
Okay, so he said it should have been 95. So I said 94 or 95. So he's saying it's 95. It was 95% in 1965.
Right now, 2025, you're talking about a 70 to 75% single-parent household rate in the black community. And among whites, it's about a 25% single-parent household rate, which would bring you lower than the 80% among the black community, which was an emergency. A little bit of context. Let's keep rocking.
Is this because you don't understand history? Or literally it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you?
You married a white woman, so you think that whitewashes you. Wow. Well, I have Byron Donalds on. He's running for governor of the great state of Florida. It's just a great conversation, but he went there. You got to see this.
First and foremost, don't talk about my wife. Keep my wife out of this. Ain't got nothing to do with her. You can talk to me about policy anytime you want to. Secondarily, there was a couple of times on the campaign trail last year where I know I was booked to be on stage or to be in debate with Jasmine, and all of a sudden, her schedule changed. She had a conflict, whatever the case might be. So if she wants to do this, if she wants to have that debate, I'm easy to find. You ain't got to look hard for me. I'm 6'2". You can find me as pretty easy. Number 3, and most importantly, this demonstrates, frankly, the racism in the Democrat Party, because they don't have a problem when Kamala Harris is married to a white man, or when Ketanji Brown Jackson's married to a white man, as long as they subscribe to the politics of the Democratic left. As long as you do that, everything is fine. But if you're a conservative, but your spouse happens to be white or of another race, then all of a sudden it's a problem. This is the racism that occurred.
Bro, he's speaking such true facts right now that it's disgusting. And if you guys haven't noticed this, you heard it here, you better remember it. Because as this does speak to the racism in the Democratic Party, because you heard what he said. They didn't have no problem about with Kamala Harris being married to a white man, right? You didn't even really hear people talking about that while she was running for president. You didn't even hear people complaining about that. If anybody was complaining about that, it was black guys. The black guys they was the ones that was saying something about it. Especially when I had them in proximity to me. They would be the main ones bringing it up. But you barely heard any black women say anything about it. Nobody really said anything about it. Same thing with Ketanji Brown. People barely talk about it. But if you happen to be conservative, right? So if you are liberal and you are black and you're married to the opposite race and both of you guys are liberal, it's okay. But if you're conservative and you're black and you're married to the opposite race, you're whitewashed, it's a problem. Your politics comes from the fact that you're not married to or you're not a part of this party. I'm like, man, miss me with that. Like, Byron is speaking such facts right now. It's such the nauseating truth that it's sad.
Race, then all of a sudden it's a problem. This is the racism that occurs in the Democrat Party. I'm sick of it, tired of the BS. I tell any one of them who have a concern about me and what they think my views are, debate me. And if you don't want to debate me, Google me. There's plenty of information out there because I know that I have the facts, I have the information. I can back my stuff up. All they can do is throw out innuendos, throw out talking points. And the last thing I'll say about Ms. Crockett, and I'm gonna leave it alone. Jasmine, I don't use talking points. Nobody tells me what to say. And so I know how to deliver a message because I have facts, I have logic, I use economics, I don't get into hyperbole. So if you are concerned about some of the things that I say find a show. It can be whatever show you want to. We'll sit there and do it. We'll have a good time along the way, and you'll go ahead and be defeated very quickly.
Make sure you're following this channel right here if you like this kind of stuff, baby.
Shout out to Joe Peg. Shout out to Byron Donalds.
Shout out to Joe
That was
Peg.
amazing. Hey, there's so much I want to say. There's a lot there. First of all, Jasmine Crockett, not you hiding, not you running from Byron Donalds. Is that what we doing? Are you big and bad, cussing and fussing and carrying on? Talk about, you think you whitewash because you got a white wife? Well, okay, if you feel that way and you want to say that on the Breakfast Club, then why not go to wherever you were scheduled to go on more than one occasion and talk to the man face to face? Why not do that? Okay, you're in politics, he's in politics. You're in the house, he's in the house. I'm sure you guys see each other in DC. I'm sure you guys are sometimes, like you said, scheduled to be at the same place in front of a microphone being able to talk. So why not do that?
Because she's not going to do that. Shout out to you, Anthony Logan. Thank you for your commentary and your content. She's not going to do that because Byron Donalds is a conservative who is very well packaged. And Byron Donalds is not the type of person that an emotional Democrat should debate. I would not advise that. I would not advise that. I wouldn't advise Cory Booker to debate Byron Donalds. I wouldn't advise I don't want to call him this, but shout out to Brandon Lehman. He's always calling him a Walmart Obama. I wouldn't advise Hakeem Jeffries to debate Byron Donalds, Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Chuck Schumer. It doesn't matter who comes from that side. I wouldn't advise it. The only person that might be able to handle it, and I think might come correct to the point where it's like, wow, this guy's really a Democrat. One person I'll throw out there is John Fetterman. Here's the funny thing about the Democrats. Anytime you throw John Fetterman out there, they're like, what? Not John Fetterman, not the guy that can't buy a suit. And I'm just like, dude, like seriously, you think that the American people care that this guy wears a hoodie and shorts? They don't care about that. And they want a Democratic candidate that got some sense. They don't care about that. If he has shorts and a hoodie, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have no sense. He might actually have more sense than y'all that wear suits every day. So that's not gonna matter. John Fetterman has lightly low key been endorsed by many Republicans already. He was already out in Mar-a-Lago with President Trump and talked about how the meeting was great and how even President Trump said that he was a great guy and they saw eye to eye on a lot of things and he has common sense. So I'm telling the Democrats, like I've said it in 2028. I'm like, I have to wash my hands of it because we're not near midterms yet. But I'm telling you guys, if we do not see about a 180 by the end of the year, it doesn't matter who they put up. Now, as far as taking some Senate seats or Congress, I'm not saying that that's impossible.
And quite frank,
we saw Elon put a lot of money out there. Endorse I can't remember, is his name Brian Schimmel? Maybe it was Brian Schimmel. This was for a seat that was out in, was it in Missouri? Let me see. Wisconsin. It was in Wisconsin because it was Brian Schimmel and Susan Crawford. Brad Schimmel. Sorry about that, Brad. Yeah. So Susan, it was for a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat, and it was between Susan Crawford and Brad Schimmel. Elon Musk was endorsing Brad Schimmel. He was going around. I don't want to say campaigning, but for lack of better terms, that's what he was doing. Kind of putting it out there why it was so important for Brad to win. You know, he said that, you know, if we lose too many seats and we have the Democrats there, that's when we can start to see all these impeachments and people trying to stop Trump in his process and pushing forth legislation and these laws. So he was like, it's kind of like a life and death situation for Brad to win. And Brad ended up not winning. He actually didn't win that Senate seat in that Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. So actually Susan Crawford did. So as far as them winning seats in the House, I can see that happening because if people can't, let's just say, move President Trump, right, which they're not going to be able to, they'll do their best with the Senate, you know, and with the House. So I totally understand it. So switching gears a little bit, guys, we're going to go over to the Elevate podcast. Shout out to the Elevate podcast. I usually watch him to get a lot of my content. Let's see, as the traveling portion of the campaign begins to wind down, we take a look at the divide that the mainstream media has been driving within the Canadian population, more specifically. And they have been. So shout out to the Elevate podcast, Elevate with the number 8. He has 97,000 subscribers. Go check the channel out when you get a chance. We're going to go probably about 4 minutes in to listen to what he's saying. Now, he's paying close attention. Like he did a lot here, but it's about the 18-minute clip. But we're only going to go 4 minutes in because I wanted to pay attention to Pierre Poliev, a question a reporter asked him, and how he answered the question back. But also, you know, the behind-the-scenes game that the media is playing, and you can kind of see it and hear literally just in the question that they're asking him. So let's watch. Did I cut you off? I might have. My bad, guys.
Happy Saturday, folks. Hope you're doing well. As you know, it's the weekend. Even in a campaign trail, there's a point where things start hitting a bit of a lull, and that today is one of those days. Yeah, sure, there's a little bit of weird news, side news coming out of North BC of a liberal candidate saying, well, comparing himself to Adolf Hitler. Didn't see that coming. That was weird. Maybe a little too close to home for that party. I don't know. It was a little odd. Holy smokes. But what I want to get into today is because of a slower news day, I want to address some things that happened yesterday. Not specific stories, not specific issues, but a trend and a troubling trend that I've been seeing. I got some feedback from my left-leaning friends yesterday after I railed on the mainstream media. And there's like, Josh, I think you're just being a little too hard. I think you need to take another look at this. Like, what do you think is really going on? And I said, I hear you, but my issue is this media is so unapologetically crazy. So let's talk about it for a second. We'll leave at the door the one-sidedness of it. Let's talk about how they ratcheted up the rhetoric around our relationship with the United States, around our relationship with each other, around the relationship between the leaders of the parties, to create as much division and hatred and vitriol as possible. That has been a concern to me. That's something that you see.
Dude, the level of vitriol has been ridiculous to me. And it's like, you had to hear Kevin O'Leary go on the record and say, Canada doesn't hate the U.S. Americans don't hate Canadians. Canadians don't hate Americans. Like, you really had to have somebody go on the air and say that. Like, we know that Canada is one of our biggest allies. We know that we have a great relationship with Canada. This is just what happens during campaigns. It's like Kevin O'Leary talked about the timing and that Canada's going through, like a campaign right now. This is the reason why this is happening. When you have prime ministers, world leaders, presidents trying to get elected, there's this rhetoric that starts to get thrown around to where it seems like people are enemies and they're not. And that's what they're seeing. Canada has never been an enemy of the United States. So let's just stop. It's literally, this is some of the most annoying rhetoric I've heard.
More in the States, or at least historically, you'd see more in the States, but that was never really traditionally part of our culture. Until then, well, the media started dying because they couldn't make private dollars to get their agencies to keep running. And then Mr. Trudeau had to step in and give them a bunch of dollars. And now they are sucking at the teeth of the government, hoping, praying that their money doesn't go away. And now there's another candidate who says, we're going to be cutting off that funding, and you need to live and work on your own. And now we've seen our media weaponized and turned to a 12 like we've never seen it before, because their jobs depend on it. They're not mad at their employer. They're not mad at the people running their agencies or people running their departments. No, they're upset at the politicians who should have stayed out of it in the first place. Yep. If you really wanted to be a public broadcaster, then you should have stayed unbiased, or at least strive to be unbiased as best as possible, but you didn't. There was an example in one of Poilievre's pressers yesterday that really, I had to double take so many times. Like, did that man just ask that at the politicians who should have stayed out of it in the first place? If you really wanted to be a public broadcaster, then you should have stayed unbiased, or at least strive to be unbiased. 12, like we've never seen it before, because their jobs depend on it. They're not mad at their employer. They're not mad at the people running their agencies or people running their departments. No, they're upset at the politicians who should have stayed out of it in the first place. If you really wanted to be a public broadcaster, then you should have stayed unbiased, or at least strive to be unbiased as best.
Okay, he said a public broadcaster. Okay. Okay, Josh, I was looking to see if he had insane question from the reporter. Okay, yeah, so we're close.
As possible, but you didn't. There was an example in one of Poilievre's pressers yesterday that really, I had to double take so many times. Like, did that man just ask that question?
Yep.
And this encapsulates how divisive and concerning the rhetoric that our media has been driving and the narrative they've been driving deeper into the psyche of Canadians. Listen to this question right at the beginning, and then also see how Poilievre handles it and expertly deals with it. But first, before we get into that, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. This is a big, busy election, as I've said multiple times, and getting this info out is really critical. So if you find any value from it, feel free to share. And also make sure that I've heard a lot of people who have been getting unsubscribed by YouTube themselves. Just make sure you double check. Like, I thought I was subscribed, and just make sure that button hit that bell, and that bell's on. All right, let's get into it.
And during your directions, or in your directions to the armed forces, as Prime Minister, would you instruct them to prepare war plans to defend us against the United States?
War plans to defend them against the United States. It's like, why would Canada need war plans? Oh my goodness, man. Mainstream media is disgusting.
As Prime Minister, would you instruct them to prepare war plans to defend us against the United States?
Did you hear that question? This journalist just put forward, would you as Prime Minister make sure to mobilize the Canadian Armed Forces to develop war plans against the United States? Meaning they truly believe the United States are going to come in and invade us. These people are unhinged.
They are unhinged, Josh. They are unhinged. That's not even a conversation. Like, why would the United States military be going to attack Canada or going to invade Canada? That would never happen. That's what would be the reasoning for that? Ridiculous. Unhinged. Yeah, that's a nice word, Josh.
Forces to develop war plans against the United States. Meaning they truly believe the United States are going to come in and invade us. These people are unhinged. Let's look at how Polya deals with it.
Thank you for your question. We will be rebuilding our military, and that will require more money. I've already said that I will cut back on foreign aid, back office bureaucracy, procurement boondoggles to put the money into frontline support, to fill the vacancies, to arm our troops, and to buy the equipment we need. We will have 4 new massive heavy icebreakers to reclaim our Arctic waters. We will buy the Poseidons. We will have fighter jets, a new base, the first Canadian base in the Arctic since the Cold War, CFB Iqaluit. And we will once again have a strong and proud military that can defend our territory. Our main focus will be on our territory. I will say to the Americans that if we can get a rapid conclusion to this ridiculous trade dispute in a way that protects our sovereignty, ends the tariffs, then I will put all the proceeds of that additional trade to work rebuilding our armed forces.
He lays it out plain and simple, folks. Yeah. Loves that he...
Pierre is smooth, though. He knows how to answer this question. And I love that he actually ignored the reporter because it was a stupid question. In the sense where not the person is stupid, but the United States is not invading Canada. That's never been a conversation. That's never even been on the table. But this is what we have to deal with mainstream media and their divisiveness.
Just kind of, all right, that was a stupid question. I'll take that and make sure to address this part of my platform and how I really want to go after rebuilding our military, which was fantastic. But this is the rhetoric our media is driving down our throats. And quite frankly, it is really upsetting to me because anyone who knows and is watching what's happening, yes, Donald Trump's doing his 51st state rhetoric. Okay, he's actually been pretty quiet for the most part for the past couple weeks. But anyone who knows anything about anything knows that that is not anything real. That is not happening. The United States aren't mobilizing military to come take us over. That's just not happening. Come on, man. Like, really? But our media thrives on fear.
That's really not happening. That's why it's like, and Josh is true, like, he's actually been quiet the last couple of weeks. Yeah, he has been, because you know one reason why I think he's been quiet, Josh, as one of the people over here in the United States, because I don't like President Trump's statement, well, it's easy to deal with the liberals. Well, clearly it's easy to deal with the liberals because he just kicked the liberals out of office. So he knows that it's easier to deal with the liberals because they get in control and they absolutely do nothing. Or they drive a country into poverty or bankruptcy. So of course it would be easier because our president is trying to put America first, which I commend him and I thank him for that. With that being said, I went on record plenty of times to say it is absolutely ridiculous and disrespectful to a certain degree to say to a whole country, hey, do you want to be a piece of lint in my pocket? Like, Canada is a whole entire country. Now, does President Trump have an end game with this? Sure. If they become a 51st state, there's no tariffs. But the other side to that is this whole retaliatory tariff thing, right? So if Trump's going to charge what they charge, if there are no tariffs coming from Canada, there will be no tariffs coming from the United States. They actually don't have to become the 51st state to do that. They can just say that, hey, we want fair trade and this is what we're going to do. And then President Trump will agree to it, right? This is the reason why we have places like, where was this place at? It's not Singapore, it's not Yemen. It might be Singapore, but one of the countries came back to President Trump and they said that they want to renegotiate and they are willing to drop their tariffs to 5%. This is a country whose tariffs are at 35% right now. So they're willing to drop their tariffs down to 30%. They're willing to drop them down 30%. Just so instead of they have to deal with 35%, they're like, hey, we'll do 5%. And then that's going to make President Trump drop down to 5%. He's not going to keep it at 10 or 15. He's like, whatever they charge us, we charge back. So it's kind of like, it's really kind of sick what mainstream media is doing with the level of divisiveness that they are spreading. But this is the reason why so many people have moved away. This is the reason why their ratings are dropping and why more people like the Elevate podcast, channels like mine, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, Theo Vaughn. These are why. This is why the Black Conservative. This is why so many other channels are like are starting to take off and gain the trust of the American people and other people, because they already know. They know that mainstream media, they're lying, and really what they do is they just want to strike fear at people.
They thrive on doubt. And the liberals know this as well. But we see the CBC driving another similar divisive rhetoric, but in this case, hating on Wayne Gretzky and hate.
All right, shout out to you, Josh. Thanks for your commentary. So yeah, I just think that that's something that I thought that was. I agree with Josh there a lot. That was a pretty insane question for someone to literally turn around and say, like, you know, to Pierre, if you become prime minister, are you going to be mobilizing our military to prepare against, you know, basically if the Americans try to invade us? And I'm like, what? Who said the Americans were invading Canada? That's not even a conversation. All right, guys, so switching gears. CTV News, shout out to them, 2 million subscribers. Conservative leader Polyev vows to cut bureaucratic red tape by 25%. I actually like this plan that Pierre has here. So I'm going to play this so you guys can check it out. Let's watch.
All right, we're going to take you to British Columbia now, where Conservative leader Pierre Polyev is making an announcement on his plan to cut federal red tape.
Reduce the number of regulatory titles. So it's like gluing all your books together and saying that you reduced the number of books, but you might actually have even more pages if you've added more books into the newly glued collection. And today, we have more individual rules and regulations just with fewer titles. So they've gone around the law in order to impose more burden on our small businesses, driving investment, jobs, and opportunity away at a time when we are more vulnerable than ever before. And that is why today I'm announcing that we will deliver change. And after 10 years of liberals, we can't give them a fourth term. We need a new conservative government that will put Canadian small business and workers first for a change. I'm announcing that a conservative government will cut red tape by 25% over the next 2 years. We'll impose a 2-for-1 rule, which means every new regulation or rule will have to be matched with eliminating 2 existing ones. And we will do the same with dollar value. Every $1 increase in the administrative burden of the federal government will have to be matched with $2 of reductions elsewhere. And finally, to make sure there are no more tricks like the liberals have played to get around this rule, we'll give a legal mandate to the Auditor General to audit every year the administrative burden to ensure that these rules are being honored. This will force the senior bureaucracy to constantly comb through the rules, get rid of unnecessary and useless regulations, and find the most efficient way to protect public safety and the environment. There are expensive and bureaucratic ways that involve lots of paper, and there are ways that you can do more efficiently. And I'll give you an example. When they had the Great Global Recession, the Harper government made the decision that we would fund municipal projects using a 1-page application form, 1 page. And there would be 1 environmental review per project, not 7 or 8. Now everyone screamed and said, well, this is going to harm safety and the environment.
7 or 8 environmental reviews per project is ridiculous. That's a lot of red tape. That is a lot of red tape. That's probably, I don't even know if that's worse than America, but I think it is, because President Trump would talk about some of the worst things that are hard to get in America as far as regulation. and some of it he would talk about, you know, the buildings and like the areas you're going to put them at, and it would be this type of study, and then, you know, red tape here and red tape there. So this 2-for-1, I like when Pierre says, like, for every new rule that's made, it has to be two rules that are either discontinued or they're not in play anymore. For every dollar that's raised that puts a burden on Canadian people, there has to be $2 that is taken away from services elsewhere. That's what I'm like. I like where he's going with this, because really what that stops is that, you know, regulation, pile up, red tape, rules, like blockage. And he's like, listen, a way we can stop this is that if they want to put a rule in place, they got to get rid of 2 of them. If they want to raise whatever they raise anything but per dollar, they got to get rid of $2 somewhere else. Like, this is how he's trying to save the Canadian people and the economy, especially the working class. This is where this would probably hit the most, and also with people who are relatively well off and they can build things and they can build businesses and put structures and buildings in place. All of this regulation, it stops people. It makes people unattractive to it. It makes them say, hey, you know what, maybe I'll go build in America, it'll be easier, or maybe I'll go somewhere in Europe and it'll be easier.
Now everyone screamed and said, well, this is going to harm safety and the environment. Well, we completed 23,500 projects in 2 years without one public safety problem or one environmental problem identified by the Environment Commissioner.
And I was with one form. So I don't know how many forms they have now, but he said this was during the Harper government, so it was before him. And I was with one form. They did 23,500 without one incident. So it's if you I don't want to say dumb down or water down, but if you subtract from a process, especially if what you're subtracting is waste, it actually can become more beneficial. It actually can become more helpful. It seems like here, based on what he's saying, that when it was down to one form, that it was easier for people to get around the regulations, not get around them, but past them, and there actually be no violations in place. Whereas now, things are a lot stricter, there's a lot more red tape, and it seems impossible.
That proves you can protect safety and the environment with less bureaucracy. In other words, stop stopping and start starting. Mark Carney and his team of Trudeau Liberals want you to forget. They want you to forget the 10 years of growing bureaucracy and shrinking wages, the anti-development and anti-growth policies. They want you to think that somehow they will be different than they were in the last 3 terms. Now, I can't help but notice that Mr. Carney is contradicting himself again today as he plagiarizes my latest policy. On April the 1st,
Listen, you guys have to be watching both sides. Like, in Canada, you have to watch both sides. Like, I don't care if because you're a conservative, you're like, I'm only a conservative, so I'm not going to watch anything the liberals put out. Or because you're a liberal, I'm not going to watch anything the conservatives put out. This year in the United States, because it was election year, I actually made my wife watch both sides because I wanted her to get an understanding of how this thing works. And she actually caught a lot of the times that Kamala Harris copied off of something that Donald Trump said. It happens in presidential campaigns all of the time, but people don't always catch it, because if I'm blue and I vote Democrat, then that's what I pay attention to. I only care about what the Democrats have to say. And if I'm red and I vote Republican or conservative, I only care about what red has to say, and that's the only thing I'm paying attention to. But see, when you do that, you can't catch when someone is lying, when someone really has no foundation for their policies, when they have no plan, when they don't actually know what they're going to do, but they've already caught on that the other candidate is doing a better job with the people, so they start saying some of those things that candidate's saying. My wife caught this stuff all of the time when Kamala Harris would do this with Donald Trump. And then I started to catch it because I would watch both sides. Maybe not one side more than the other, but I had a pretty good balance, you know. So there were times where I would have my wife watch at least 3 of Kamala Harris's campaign rallies, and then at least 3 of President Trump's campaign rallies because it was important. And then on her own, she decided which she liked better. She navigated, or she veered towards the one that was more suiting for her.
On April the 1st, just 4 or 5 days ago, his government got rid of the apprenticeship grant. And today, after seeing that I support the grant and I'll bring it back, he's trying to plagiarize me yet again. You can't believe anything he says when he does one thing on April Fool's Day, and then not even a week later, he says the opposite. He is just like Justin Trudeau, and there will be no change if you give Liberals a 4th term. I have announced a real plan for our apprentices. We will train up 350,000 of them. We'll bring back the apprenticeship grant Conservatives originally introduced and that Liberals have eliminated. And we will stand up for workers across this country. Now, the reality is that Mr. Carney represents the same Liberal record of the last 10 years. He was Trudeau's economic advisor. He has the Liberal ministers, MPs, strategists, and he's now repeating the same broken Liberal promises. The most powerful thing that we can do to break free from dependence on the Americans is to unleash the power of our resources, entrepreneurs, and workers. That starts by repealing the anti-development, anti-pipeline law C-69, a law that Mark Carney announced the other day he will keep in place. A resume is not a plan, nor is keeping the same Liberal policies that got us in this mess in the first place. A 4th Liberal term will only strengthen the Americans and weaken Canada. We need a new Conservative government that will put Canada first for a change. My plan will unleash industry to make us strong, self-reliant, so we can stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to President Trump. Only a Conservative government will bring in a reinvestment, Canada First reinvestment tax cut, 0 capital gains tax on anything you reinvest in the Canadian economy. This will be economic rocket fuel, especially in the Okanagan, where you've got so many realtors, small businesses, entrepreneurs who will bring their money home and unlock incredible opportunities for this beautiful free enterprise area of our country. We will also cut income taxes by 15% so that hard work pays off and you bring home more of each dollar you earn. We'll take the GST, the federal sales tax, off new homes to save you up to $65,000 on a purchase and boost home building by 30,000 units every year. We'll take the GST off Canadian-made cars to boost demand and support our auto workers. In other words, bring it home. We will repeal all the anti-energy laws and rapidly approve LNG plants, 6 months approval times. We could have enormous $10 and $15 billion projects dotting all along the west coast of British Columbia, unlocking enormous paychecks for our tradespeople and our First Nations communities. This can only happen with a new government. The current Liberal government will stand in the way. That is why President Trump has said it is easier to deal with the Liberals. He wants to keep our resources under his control and our investment in his economy. I want the opposite. I want to bring it home. So the choice is clear. After the lost Liberal decade, we can't afford a 4th term of costs and crime up and the economy down under Trump's thumb. We need a new Conservative government that will unleash our resources, cut our taxes, and bring home our jobs so we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength. It's time for a new Conservative government that will put this country first and restore the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life.
Okay, we've been listening to Conservative leader Pierre speaking in BC, announcing a Conservative government would cut government red tape, which refers to things like excess regulation and delays, by 25% over the next 2 years. He says for every new rule or regulation brought in, 2 existing ones will be eliminated, and every dollar added to what he called the administrative burden will have to be matched by a $2 reduction elsewhere. We are going to continue monitoring this. We'll bring you back when reporters begin asking questions. For now, we're going to take a quick break. This will bring you that reduction elsewhere to what he called the add-in to existing ones will be eliminated, and every dollar added to what he called the administrative burden will have to be matched by a $2 reduction elsewhere. We are going to continue.
Every dollar added to the administrative burden will be matched with a $2 reduction elsewhere. Every regulatory rule that's put in place will have to be matched with 2 regulatory rules being taken away. So I like where he's going with it. You know, I don't see how Canadians can't like that, but I think that they will. The more of them that figure out that that's the route that he wants to go and that's what he has in mind. I feel like that's going to definitely help, 1, the working class, 2, people in Canada that want to build and put businesses in place for other people and, you know, do better with their businesses. You know, I can understand how, like, because of crazy regulations and just certain burdens when it comes to fees and things like that, why Canadians would say, you know what, I'm going to look in another country to see if I can get a better deal. I could totally understand that. Pierre has been very vocal about bringing it back, bringing it home to Canada, just like President Trump was. So his thing is that, hey, if I can get rid of some of these regulatory rules, regulations that are stopping people, and I can kind of just start to peel back some of this red tape and remove it, maybe more Canadian businesses will stay in Canada or come back to Canada, because that's his ultimate goal. So guys, with that being said, switching gears to the last clip of the live stream, we're going to end the live with a clip from Cliff Buell, YouTube content creator, focuses on Christian content for the most part. I like his content a lot. I always say that if you guys aren't familiar with Jesus, you're not a follower of Jesus, no pressure here, but this is one of the channels that you can go to and you can learn a lot really quickly, and you can just literally go through his live streams, go through his podcast episodes, go through his short videos, his YouTube shorts, and he has a lot of information out there. Last time I checked, he was at 635,000 subscribers and still growing and counting. So please go check out Cliff Buell's channel once you guys get a chance. So Christians, be warned. Did Kamala Harris just deny Jesus? So this is pre-election. This was before the election actually took place. She's rallying here, so she's at a campaign rally, and someone screams that Jesus is Lord. And this is when Kamala Harris says, oh, you're at the wrong campaign, right? I thought this was very interesting, but let's watch first.
Someone yells Jesus is Lord at a Kamala rally, and she tells them they're in the wrong place. It's insane. It's really hard to hear, so listen carefully, and there is a second clip at the end where you can hear it much more clearly.
And they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
But someone who tells you you're in the wrong place if you say Jesus is Lord is not someone a Christian can support.
I would agree with that. He said someone who tells you you're in the wrong place because Jesus is the Lord is not someone a Christian should support. I would agree with that. So she's at a campaign rally, she's speaking, someone shouts out, Jesus is Lord, and she says, oh, you're at the wrong rally. You must have meant to go to the smaller one down the street, referring to one of President Trump's rallies, which, by the way, were always bigger than Kamala Harris's rallies. I watched them personally. So when people were saying that Trump couldn't fill anything up and that her rallies were overflowing, I was like, what rally were they watching? Because me and my wife watched that rally. That's interesting. So it was crazy. They started with AI crowds. It was crazy. But literally, I watched a lot of President Trump's rallies live, and I watched a lot of Kamala Harris's rallies live. And yeah, they both had seats filled. But towards the end, as we got closer and closer to election night, President Trump, his rallies definitely got kind of out of control at some point. I would say Kamala Harris started off with a faster traction. Like, she might have started off seemingly bigger, but it didn't last. It didn't last very long. It didn't stay that way throughout her whole campaign rally. So here's why I think this is interesting. The closer it got to election, I started to see Kamala Harris in churches, specifically black churches. I wasn't shocked by that because they were pandering to the black community, so I understand why they were doing that. Here's why it bothered me. I didn't understand why certain churches were letting Kamala Harris in the pulpit on Sunday after she, at many rallies, went on record to tell people whenever they would claim that Jesus is Lord that they were in the wrong place. Okay, so let's entertain that for a minute. If according to Kamala Harris, someone saying Jesus is Lord means that they're in the wrong place, where's the right place to say that at? Only a church? Only in their house? Only in the privacy of Christian community or other friends? Or is a Christian allowed to say that anywhere? Because, I mean, it's fine if you say you're in the wrong place because you don't believe that. But if you don't believe that, why would you be willing to go into somebody else's pulpit on Sunday and act like you do believe that because you're trying to get the black vote or because you're trying to convince black people that you're something that you're not? This is the reason why Kamala Harris running for president was extremely alarming to me. And it should have been like that for almost any person in America. I want to say it should have been like that for any black person. But if you don't pay attention to politicians, black and brown people, right? Because I come from a mixed family, it doesn't matter. Whether they're black, whether they're Hispanic, for the most part, my family does not pay attention to politics, right? A lot of people that I'm surrounded around, they don't pay attention to politics. If you were to ask them, who is your state's representative, which I do know this person's name, no one in my family would know this. No one in, I don't want to say my close circle, because there are people in my inner circle that would know this, but there are not a lot of people who are, let's say, that are extremely interested in this or that will follow it because they know that laws and legislation that are put in place by local electives are first affect their life first and foremost faster than even the president doing it. They're not paying attention to things like this. But this is why it was so important to me for people to have awareness during this election and for the election coming up in 2028. Every 4 years, your awareness should be heightened because you shouldn't just be voting for someone just because they're Democrat or just because they're Republican, right? Their morals, their ethics, what they stand for, all of that has to matter too. All of that has to matter. Even the controversial topics or where they stand on those points have to matter as well. So if we just think, oh, this person has a great personality and they seem charismatic and they could really win a crowd over, so what? That doesn't matter. It matters how you're going to stand up to world leaders that try to take advantage of the United States. Or what type of legislation are you going to pass? Are you going to pass legislation that protects people or puts people in danger? So things like this stuff matters. So I was extremely grateful that Cliff pulled that out because that was something that I noticed during her campaign rallies. And it was something that went kind of viral when it happened because you had people react to it. I want to say, if it wasn't Anton Daniels, shout out to Anton Daniels. If he didn't react to it, I might have seen it on the Cartier family. Shout out to Cartier family. But I know I saw a couple of people reacting to this, specifically in the black community too, about look at what Kamala Harris is saying about Jesus not being Lord, but then she's in churches on Sunday preaching in pulpits trying to get votes. Listen, the church was in a very controversial position as far as I'm concerned. I feel like that this past election, they went way too far. I feel like they did. But, you know, that's to each of his own. Everybody has an opinion. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate you stopping by and chilling on the corner with me on this Saturday. I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream so you guys can enjoy the rest of your Saturday and the rest of your weekend. And we do not live stream here on Mondays, but we will on Sundays, but we will be back Monday like we never left. Monday, 4 p.m. I'm thinking that that's going to be the new time going forward straight, and we're staying there unless I want to go on twice before or after. But I think per analytics and me using my crash course of 2 weeks to figure this out, I think 4 p.m. 1600 EST is our time going forward. So I will see you guys on Monday at 4 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your week. What I always say, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, love yourselves. And I say that because it's not easy. Everyone doesn't love themselves. So love yourselves, love one another, and be peaceful. Until next time, guys.